I summoned you, please come to me. Don't bury thoughts that you really want. I fill you up, drink from my cup. Within me lies what you really want.
The morning after the party, the mansion was quiet. The echoes of the night's rivalry long since faded. Wine awake to find the room empty, she braced herself for another day of silence and solitude. As she made her way downstairs, the scent of fresh coffee wafted through the air, a small but unusual comfort in the atmosphere. In the kitchen, she found a breakfast spread laid out on the table, her favorite dishes, prepared just the way she liked them. It was a simple gesture, but one that was out of ordinary. Taehyung was nowhere to be seen, but his hand was evident in the careful arrangement of the meal. Vine's fingers stressed the rim of the coffee cup, the warmth seeping into her skin. She realized this was Taehyung's way of reaching out, a silent olive branch extended in the form of thoughtful act. Throughout the day, Wai noticed some small changes. A vase of fresh flowers placed in the living room, the absence of the usual demands and cold interference from Taehyung. He gave her space, a quiet acknowledgement of her need for time and gentleness. In the evening, as Wine sat reading in the garden, Taehyung joined her. He didn't speak, simply looked at a seat nearby with his own book. When the night fell, Taehyung approached Wine, a delicate blanket in his hands which he draped gently over her shoulders against the chill. His touch was light, careful not to startle her. His actions a wordless apology for his earlier harshness. Wine, you must learn to stand up for yourself. This world isn't merciful to anyone. Only the fittest one can survive here. And by fittest, I am talking about physical appearance. I am talking about money and intellectual power. You shouldn't expect anyone to help you or fight for you because nothing in this world is free, nothing. If one is helping you, then they expect something in return. The return favor may not always be innocent, and that's when you will crumble while returning that sinful favor. While looked at him, the vulnerability in her eyes clear as the stars above. But I don't know how. I have never been taught to fight back. I was 20 when I had to sit on my father's throne after he and my elder brother passed away during a gang war. He said without looking at her, whose eyes were widened after hearing him. His voice was almost like a whisper. Shock was evident on her face. You must be thinking a boy who's been brought up in mafia, it shouldn't be hard for him to cope with this. Hell, it must have been his dream to conquer his father's throne, defeating his elder brother, being the capo, but in reality it wasn't the case. I wasn't brought up in mafia world. My mother Taehyung, I am not telling you all this because I want your pity or sympathy. No, I am telling you this so that you can understand that not always everyone is prepared for everything, but still they have to face it. Do it. If a 20 years boy can face this harsh reality, then you are older than him. Why can't you do this? Taehyung then said, his voice steady, reassuring, "It's not about fighting, it's about asserting. You have a voice, use it. When they mock you, answer back, not with anger but with words so true they feel the sting of a slap. What if I say the wrong thing? There's no wrong thing when you speak the sincerity. Let your words be polite, but then let them carry the weight of your dignity. It's a skill, and like any skill, it requires practice." Wai nodded, the warmth from the blanket seeping into her skin, a physical reminder of Taehyung's unexpected kindness. "Start small if you must, but start." With those parting words, Taehyung turned and walked away, leaving Wai wrapped in the thin blanket and his belief in her. It was a small gesture, but for Wai, it felt like the first step towards something new. Wai sat quietly in her room, the blanket still wrapped around her. She was too innocent for such games, her heart too full of love she had been taught to hold for her husband. Despite the harshness she had endured since their wedding night, her feelings for Taehyung remained unchanged. She loved him, not for his warmth, which was seldom, but for the complex man she believed he was. His actions today, so out of character from the man she knew, left her in a state of gentle confusion. "He's always so distant, so cold, but today he showed me a kindness I never knew he had." She pondered over the softness in his actions, the care he had taken to ensure her comfort. It was a side of Taehyung she had never seen, but one she had always hoped existed. Maybe he's like the moon. He has a dark side that I am used to, and now I am seeing a glimpse of his light. I don't know what tomorrow holds, but I will hold on to this feeling, the feeling that maybe in his own way he cares. As she lay down to sleep, Vine clasped the blanket a little closer, allowing herself to bask in the softness of the moment. For now, that was enough. For now, the memory of Taehyung's gentle actions would be her lullaby, lulling her into a world of dreams where coldness melted away and warmth took its place. Couple of weeks later. The library's hollowed silence was punctuated only by the rhythmic dance of Vine's fingers across the spines of ancient tomes. She was searching for a particular volume, one that held the secrets of algebraic structures, to prepare for her upcoming university interviews. She muttered to herself, "Where is it? Professor Knight mentioned it was a crucial reference." Her words trailed off into the stillness as she stood on tiptoes, her fingertips barely grazing the desired book's leather-bound spine. It was just out of reach, a metaphor, perhaps for her own aspirants. Taehyung approached her silently, his voice a low murmur that seemed to resonate with the library's ancient walls. "Let me." "Oh, I didn't see you here. I can manage. Her voice barely above a whisper, a soft tremor betraying her nervousness. But before she could protest further, Taehyung was already reaching up, his hand brushing against hers in a fleeting electric touch. The contact was accidental, unintended, yet it sparked a connection that seemed to linger in the air, charged with an energy that neither of them could deny. A blush creeping onto her cheeks, she took the book from his hand. She then said, her voice a whisper of silk, "Thank you, Taehyung-shi. I didn't expect you to be here." Taehyung's eyes meeting hers, a flicker of something unreadable passing through them. "I could say the same. You are usually not one to frequent the library this late." She clasped the book to her chest, a barrier against the intensity of his gaze. I have to prepare. The interviews, they mean everything to me." A smirk playing on his lips, he then added, his voice laced with a hint of mockery, "A professor, huh? And what would the students think of their teacher, so timid and soft-spoken?" "They would think that she is passionate about mathematics, that she believes in the beauty of numbers and the power of education." Taehyung's expression shifted, the mockery giving way to the grudging respect. He leaned against the shelf, his eyes still looking at hers. "Passion, is it? But that day, during breakfast, your ideology seemed to be so different than this." "Honestly, between that day and today, there is not much difference. That day I wanted to see you happy, content. Today too, I want you to see happy. Just the difference is that that day I didn't know. You weren't looking for a stay-at-home wife, but today I know what you want. So I am turning myself into what you want. And honestly, I do enjoy drowning myself in numbers than sitting at home. So this is like a blessing in disguise, where I will be able to do both. And at the end of the day, my dream of keeping you happy will come true," she said softly, but Taehyung's face hardened. There was a pause, a moment where the world seemed to hold its breath. "I am glad you would be a math professor instead of literature or psychology." Some dreams can be dangerous, Vian. They can lead you down paths that you best left untraveled. Perhaps, but it's a risk I am willing to take. For once, I want to step out of the shadows and into the light. Couple of months later. The mansion was silent, a tomb of secrets and shadows. Vian's footsteps were hesitant as she approached Taehyung's bedroom, the door looming before her like a gate to the underworld. Vian uttered her voice a mere whisper, trembling with trepidation, seeing the man collecting his weapons with a rage-filled face. "Taehyung-shi, may I come in?" There was no response, only the scratching of metals that halted abruptly. The silence was suffocating, pressing down on her with an intensity that threatened to crush her spirit. "Enter," his voice finally breaking the silence, cold and sharp as blade. Vian pushed the door open, her heart pounding against her ribs. The room was dimly lit, the only light coming from the light above the bed that cast an ominous glow on Taehyung's face. She gathered courage and said, her hands clasped in front of her, her eyes downcast. "The maids, they were muttering you need to involve in some gang war." Taehyung turned around and saw her figure. "You should not concern yourself with such matters. It's beneath you." A shiver running down her spine hearing his deep voice. But I worry for you. The violence, what if you get severely injured? Don't go there. Send your men. What if something happens to you? I only wish for your safety. A tear slipping down her cheek, her voice barely audible. My shadow, do you think I need your consent to navigate my own empire? You who flinches at the slightest shadow, his anger flaring, his voice rising like a storm. Just because I have talked to you nicely for twice or thrice, it doesn't mean you will give me orders. You are my wife, not my keeper. Remember your place, Vian. With that, he turned his back to her, dismissing her presence as one would dismiss a servant. Vian stood there, the weight of his words crushing her. She had married a man only to find herself in the clutches of a monster. I am sorry, Taehyung. Her voice a mere breath, her resolve crumbling. She retreated from the room, the door closing behind her with a finality that echoed in her ears. The tears that followed were silent, a testament to the life she had entered, a life where love was a distant dream and fear was a constant companion. I will upload next part after receiving at least 20 comments.